So today our audience primarily includes people who are living with dementia, people caring for somebody with dementia, and then of course people who would like to learn more. A reminder again, as Claire had said earlier, that the session is being recorded. Your microphones and your cameras are turned off so that we don't see your faces, we don't hear your voices, so they won't be part of the recording. So today's topic is seniors, safety, and silver linings. We'll have a 20 to 30 minute presentation, and then we will follow that up with 20 minutes of 15 to 20 minutes of questions and answers. So it's my privilege today to introduce you Dawn Thomas, and Dawn is the Senior Safety Coordinator for Digby and Area Senior Safety Program. Dawn has worked with the community seniors and provincial partners for over 14 years and through the Senior Safety Program and the RCMP. So her passion for dementia advocacy for caregivers stems not only for her work with seniors and families, but also from her personal experience in caring for her mother who developed young onset Alzheimer's disease. Dawn participates at a provincial level in bringing awareness to the needs of seniors with dementia and the increasing struggles of caregivers. So I am going to welcome Dawn.
Hey, Kara.
Yeah.
I'm just going to set my timer here.
Sure.
Welcome everyone to my dining room. It's great to be part of your program, and I'm so excited to see you. It's funny how everything is kind of popping up on our screen, so I'm going to tell you how grateful I am to be invited to participate today. So what I want to do is tell you about the senior safety programs in Nova Scotia, and maybe relate a little bit of my personal experience to what other people have been going through, whether you're a caregiver, you're a person with dementia, or you're a person who's in need of, collecting resources in the province. If you haven't been part of the healthcare system and you're living in the community, the senior safety programs are kind of like a one-stop shop. So I'm excited to let you know a bit about them. So first of all, what is the senior safety program and what do we do for seniors and families? So what the goal is for us to assist seniors to stay in their home for longer and to be safe. So we are lucky to have a partnership with most often the RCMP or municipal policing units in our province, which helps to keep us safe. So we go through a vetting process where people know that we can be trusted, and we also have an opportunity to work with the RCMP. So if there's high-risk visits, might be an abusive situation, maybe someone living back in the wilderness at risk, then we can take members of the RCMP with us, which is great. The benefits of the program is that it's free. So seniors don't need to pay, they don't need to qualify, they don't need to tick a checklist. We are open to whatever situation comes across. So it's accessible, it's confidential, and it's tailored to the needs of those seniors. And this is really important because every family is different, every situation is different. There is history involved that, a simple tick sheet doesn't always, help for complicated situations. So there's no qualifications. Some of the healthcare programs, if you have dogs or weapons or booze, they can't come in, or, just difficult situations. That's not the case for us. We can respond to those things. So each community is different. So what happens in my county and Digby County is different than what happens in Cape Breton, is different what happens in the Valley. So, and there's different resources for each program. So that this is important to know. Some of our programs might respond with recreational activities, and some of them might respond with more safety related activities. So we can take referrals also from anyone. You can self-refer, and I'll talk about that a little bit more after. When I started 14 years ago, we were really focusing on home security and personal safety. We wanted people, lock your doors, light your house, keep your money in the bank, that sort of thing. And now it's more about health-related safety. So we're dealing with people who are in crisis health situations. And often that looks like dementia. There could be someone living by themselves, having a memory problem. They could be driving. There's an opportunity for us to go in there and help that person out to make sure, you know, that they're doing, you know, safer things, or they're getting the resources that they need. So we're flexible to the seniors' needs. I personally, just because I've been a caregiver for my mom, I really focus on the needs of caregivers and the challenge that we have sometimes to try to keep it all together. And I know I was looking after my mom, looking after my daughter, looking after my seniors. It can be quite difficult. So I'm sensitive to maybe the needs of what some of you might be going through. So anyway, we're hoping to promote independence and help to keep you safe at home for longer. So how do we do that? Most often it's one-to-one visits. And this is the best part, because if there's an abusive situation, we don't need to go in and look like we're tackling an abuse situation. We can go in with a vial of life. We can go in for a cup of tea. We can say, hey, I know you're here. I just want to make sure you're fine and you have everything you need. So, and that's fun. COVID has changed that, unfortunately, but we're still doing high-risk visits. So the other thing is public presentations. And these were lots of fun when we could do them. And it's been a year since we've kind of held back, or we have to social distance. But some of the presentations we might be doing could be driving, safe driving. We could be doing estate planning, which is super important. And we can have guest speakers to come and they can talk about, you know, what the best things that you can do to start planning your future. And it's important to do that early. So yeah, that's one of the better things to start thinking about. We can make referrals also to resources. So a lot of people come to us looking for help at home, especially if you're caring for somebody. We can make referrals to continuing care, to home care, and to support groups, and also to adult protection if needed. And we also have connections to policing, which is really good, because if there's seniors who are involved with maybe criminal activity, we can follow up, whereas the police would, you know, open and close it. We can do some of the background work and follow up with that senior to make sure that they're feeling secure and safe. So how do you make a referral to the senior safety program? Well, you can call us. You can phone us, email, whatever. You can call your local detachment in your area, and they should be able to connect you with the senior safety program. Neighbors, friends, and families can call and make referrals or send an email. And often this is where we hear from families who are struggling to take care of someone who has Alzheimer's disease or dementia, or is falling down or frail. We can connect people with adult protection. So there's, in the community, there's a lot of people living at risk and maybe haven't had access to healthcare or home care capacity assessments. And we had seen the senior safety program know how to make those connections to help them to get referred to a safer spot, and maybe sometimes advance them on the list if they're living at high risk, the list for home care or long-term care facilities. We have healthcare workers who sometimes call and refer because home care is going into some family situations or some home situations where they're concerned about that person living on their own. I get connections from our politicians or MLAs, town councilors. 211 is a really good resource we've been trying to encourage. In the beginning of COVID, we sort of shut down everything we were doing and rearranged our senior safety program emails and contact information because we're working at home. So 211 is a great resource. I had a call once for me to go and change somebody's light bulbs from 211. And you know what? It's great because now I'm connected to that senior and we've become good friends. The other possibility is, you know, you might be sitting next to someone in church you're worried about, and also some charities will call, you know, it might be a housing issue or somebody needs furniture or clothing, and that's what we can help with too. So as I mentioned, when I started, we were focusing a lot on personal safety and home security. So some of the things that we might talk about is how to take care of your money and do your banking. And a lot of seniors, you know, like on check day, line up at the bank, go to the teller, collect their money and leave, or pay their bills directly, right? And that's super not safe. So we really want to help encourage people not to keep their money at home, it's to use the bank. We talk a lot about, you know, who can you trust to make safe decisions? This might be something that some of you are talking about or thinking about when it comes to your estate planning and deciding on your personal directive and power of attorney. You really want to have someone who you trust, someone you've known for a long time, someone who's not afraid of doing small errands for you. These are really important decisions to make, because once you lose capacity, you really need to rely and trust the person who's going to be doing the work for you. So those are some workshops that we might have for seniors, or some conversations that we'll have with families. And then when it comes to home security, you know, what's the best form of home security? People say, yeah, having an alert system, or locking your door, and sometimes just turning on your outside lights and your inside lights is a good way to take care of your property. And we talk about leaving your garage door open, keeping your shrubbery down. And luckily we live in an area where there's not a lot of crime in the community, but you know, it's good to have nosy neighbors. And you know what, especially if you have someone living with you with dementia, I remember when my mom started wandering, we alerted the neighbors to say, yeah, it changes in a minute. You know, you can't have eyes in the back of your head, and sometimes things happen. So it's good to have, for the dementia issue and also for community safety, like keep an alert out for what's going on in your neighborhood. The other thing we might talk about is keeping people safe from falls, and we might connect you with falls prevention workshops, or we might help you to pick an alert fall button that works for you. And sometimes what I'm working on this week is helping a senior to even get a phone, because a lot of people can't afford even to have a cell phone or a phone. Another thing, as I mentioned, wandering, it's a real challenge. And one of the projects we're working on with the province right now is, and with the RCMP, is to try to come up with a way to track wanderers and to identify them, so that if there's a situation where someone goes missing, we can have their identification, have their history, have an idea of who they are and how we can find them. So that's an ongoing issue too. So, and I know you've all kind of probably been part of wanderers. Frauds and scams is a huge thing that we try to take care of. And this is Fraud Prevention Month, so we're really paying attention to this. Right now, we're doing a project on the iTunes cards and the Google Play cards. As a province, we want people, especially seniors who are at risk of these situations, to know that that they are scams out there and that you can be protected. So scams come to us either through phone, email, door-to-door mail. Social media is a huge one. And right now, the popular scams in Nova Scotia, the first one is the investor scam I mentioned. They call and say, listen, we're the bank. We want you to help us go out and buy some iTunes cards because we're trying to set this person up. And in reality, the senior is the person that's affected. And I had one recently, and he lost over $8,000 in 2 days. And it wasn't even the money that was the issue to him. It was the emotional stuff that came with that, and how it affected his marriage. And it's heart-wrenching. He really believed he was doing the right thing. The other one that's popular in Nova Scotia right now is merchandise scams. So selling cars, selling animals is something that's happening in Nova Scotia. And the other one is rental properties. So they say there's a place for rent. and there really isn't a place, but you put down a deposit. And these are popular in our area, especially where there's a lack of housing, specifically for seniors, you know, who want to downsize, can get caught up in this. The other one is the extortion scam. So the CRA might call you, or you think it's the CRA, and they threaten that you haven't paid your taxes, or they want your social insurance number, and they make threats to call the police. There's other ones too, romance scams. I had a senior once who met someone on Plenty of Fish, and she came to my area to meet him, and anyway, he ended up, not existing, which was too bad. Phishing scams are emails that look like they come from a specific maybe company, but they're not really from that company. Often you can look for spelling mistakes to see if it's legit or not, but most government organizations are not going to email you. They're going to mail you. Smishing is text messages that come in that are not real. We talk a lot about identity theft and sharing your information. So ideally, if you get a call or an email, don't share numbers. Look up the company directly online and call them and see if that's really who it is. And be careful what you share and like on Facebook. This can be a challenge. I know when my mom started showing signs of forgetting, of course, we didn't know at the time it was forgetting, but she got a phone call and they were looking for money, and she gave her Visa number over the phone. And in hindsight, 2020, now we understand why she did that. But those are some things that can be a challenge for us. So I mentioned cyber safety and internet security. This is a really tricky one even for those of us who understand how to work the internet. But when you have someone doing online banking and forgetting a little bit, it's important to, those lines are tough. So we teach people what safe sites are, if you're doing online shopping or banking, and you'll see the little lock down there in the corner. If the lock is open, it's not a safe site. If the lock is closed, you're pretty good to give it a whirl. We talk to people about online shopping, about social media behavior, and specifically Facebook, because a lot of older people are on Facebook. It's my preferred way of communicating rather than the younger generation being on TikTok or, Instagram, some of the other stuff. But we talk about, liking and sharing stuff. Jesus isn't on Facebook, and sometimes you might share something, a prayer or a child that is sick. I bet you won't share this post. You're not drawing attention to the actual photo. You're drawing attention to potentially becoming a victim of a scam. So we have to talk a lot about, what is safe, what is fake news, and what is, legitimate news. And we also talk about choosing safe passwords and how often you should change them, or when to use them, and what to include, the symbols, the numbers, the capitals, that sort of thing. So one of the big projects that we all take on is senior abuse prevention, and this is a tough one. It's tough to think that seniors out there are living at risk of being abused. These are the different types of abuse. Often we think about physical abuse. Most often we see financial abuse, and especially with the RCMP, if there's files involving police, it's usually having to do with money or fraud. So somebody might sign your check, or somebody might be taking advantage of your power of attorney. And that is why it's so important to have those conversations about who's the right person to choose. It's tough because often seniors have already lost their money, so they can't afford to hire a lawyer. Or the situation most likely is the person that's abusing the senior is an adult child or someone they love. They might not recognize that they're abusing the senior. So we take what is called a restorative approach. where we don't go in and criticize. We don't want to criminalize a family member, because often that senior needs that person to take care of them. And this is especially the case with people who have dementia and Alzheimer's, because they rely on that person. They rely on them to get them to haircuts. They rely on them for food. They rely on them, to do their banking or whatever other issues are. So it's a tough one. And sometimes dementia looks a little bit like abuse, because often the person who forgets will look towards that caregiver for help and approval. And to an outside person, that might look abusive. I remember going to dinner with my mom, and we went to a restaurant. And my instinct, the table was so cluttered, they had forks and knives and spoons and salt and pepper, all of this stuff. My instinct was to clear it all away right away, because I knew it was too much for her. The menu was on the placemat. And I know that the waitress looked at me with puzzled eyes, and I just said, this is too much stuff for her to handle. And I felt at that time that I was like looking abusive, and I didn't really like that. But those are things that the Alzheimer's Society can help you with, and to have, assistance on how to deal with those situations. But neglect is also something that can be abuse. And sexual abuse is something you don't want to think happens, but I know a few of us have had files with sexual abuse with seniors. So this driving thing is really tough, especially when we have people who have memory issues. Do they remember where they're going? What are all the steps involved in driving, like turning on your blinkers, going through an intersection, going through the rotary, pulling onto the highway? Those are things that, we think is easy, like riding a bike, but there's a lot of steps involved. So we will do sessions with seniors to say, what, here's the best time for you to be driving. Go in the daytime, take familiar routes, go when there's not a lot of traffic. And we really don't go in there trying to say you can't drive anymore unless you truly can't drive. And unfortunately, what happens with policing is we can't just go in and take someone's driver's license, and it usually only happens after there's been an accident. So we really rely on the families to intervene. Put the car keys in the cookie jar. I remember my mom pulling out of the driveway and saying, I don't know which direction I should go. And I thought, oh my goodness, you don't know which way we're supposed to turn at this point. Chances are pretty good she was going to get lost. That was a tough situation. So we ended up taking the car to get fixed for some time until we could get in touch with the doctor and get some help. This picture is of a scooter and wheelchair safety course that we did. In my community, we have a lot of scooters and electric wheelchairs. And this particular fellow got hit by a car. So he took it on at his mission to do safety sessions for other people in the community, wear a helmet, wear a vest, have a flag. And we talked to them about safe intersections and how to handle their scooters and electric wheelchairs. And again, we work closely with the police and the DMV. So if there ever are complaints, and you can put a person behind a wheel, or you can say they went through a stop sign, or they're having a hard time organizing, going through intersections, then we can certainly send letters off to the DMV saying, you know what, maybe this person needs to go for a retest. And sometimes it might be an eye test or a physical, and maybe it's just an infection that's affecting them. But we can facilitate that too. So some of the things we try to do is provide connections, and often those are in the community. So if you're not sure what to do to get started to go to a long-term care facility, to get home care, that sort of thing, we can help you with that. We can give you the 800 number. We can give you support and let you know how that's going to work and what that's going to look like. We can connect to adult protection. And often lately, adult protection is connecting to us too. So if there's someone in the community who has a memory problem and hasn't been connected to healthcare, we can go in there and kind of do a little mini assessment. What does the situation look like? How can we help that person to stay home for longer? And like I mentioned, it might be just simple little things like get them a phone or help them with home care, that sort of thing. So the other thing, and especially through COVID, there's been a lot of opportunities to help people, seniors, to get food through Feed Nova Scotia, and also housing support systems, which has been good, because I think in the beginning of COVID, a lot of caregivers kind of lost their respite, or home care is waiting for PPE, or what's going to happen with this virus, what's going to look like. So we could go in there and by phone and give a hand, or connect them with housing, or whatever the case may be. The other thing is encouraging, going to the right legal channels if you need help with powers of attorney, or your banking situations, or there's stuff at risk. We also can help with applications for rebates or income tax, or connect them to people, to those programs. And again, helping people to reach out to, like, the Alzheimer's Society and Caregivers Nova Scotia. In the beginning of COVID in my community, I was at the time running this support group. And then I had some help with Janine from Caregivers Nova Scotia. I got some volunteers together, and we started calling some of our caregivers just to make sure that they were okay, and having it wasn't easy for me, and I'm not taking care of anybody, and I can't imagine what it might be like for other people. So this is my dementia journey. This is me and my mom, and I know that it comes with so many challenges, and trying to keep her safe. I remember even simply listening outside the bathroom door one day, and she was trying to take a shower, and all the steps involved in taking a shower. She turned on the hot water and couldn't figure out how to turn on the cold water. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, like this is tough. I would go up every other night, and yeah, she did not want a bath or a shower. No way are you helping me. I am in charge. I know what I'm doing. It was really tough, and I had to be creative in coming up with a way to get her clean. So I would secretly go in there and turn on the bubble bath and put the bubbles in, and pour her a beer and say, we're having a spa day, and I would be washing her hair, and she'd say, now you're the mother and I'm the daughter. And yeah, it's tough. It's a tough situation. So one of the silver lining parts, I talked about this at the Alzheimer conference. COVID has been really, really tough on us. It's been tough on all of us, because we didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't know, like I mentioned, washing the bananas. So we shut everything down. And there was an announcement from the Department of Seniors that our senior safety programs would be getting funding. So we could contact community organizations, and they would assist us to get food to seniors, to get seniors to appointments, to get their medications, whatever it was that they needed. And a lot of us started COVID hotlines so that seniors could call and say, listen, I need help in this certain area. So we contacted all these community organizations, churches, seniors groups, fire departments, and provided them with funding so that they could make sure that seniors felt safe in all the different little communities. The exciting part of that was watching regular people rise up to the occasion to help people and to be there and call people, which was really neat. Some of the isolation projects that we took on might have been delivering activity bags to people. So in my area, we delivered workout bags, gardening bags. We called on volunteers in the different communities to help us reach out to people who felt maybe that they were alone or at risk. And I got the most wonderful thank you card from a family, and they said, thank you so much for reaching out to my mom. That meant a lot to us, because it's tough. And as I mentioned before, we would help with food and medication and transportation, and reaching out to caregivers who are having a tough time just because of the changes with home care or continuing care, accessing PPE, or not knowing what to do, or not having respite. So yeah, I know it was a challenging time for a lot of people. So we do these community connections, which is great. People rise up from the depths and reach out. And I know a lot of the municipalities and the towns just recently got credited by the province for doing all the work that they've done to reach out to people. And I think that's really awesome, because I know sometimes I think it's easier just for us to hide in our houses, but it's when we give back and we participate, we feel good and we feel better about everything. So I'm grateful for the volunteers that I've had in my area who've reached out and wanted to help. And we've been very creative in trying to find solutions for people, and working together, where often we're in silos and we're not communicating so much just because of confidentiality and privacy. But that kind of changed a little bit during COVID. So, and I see new friendships developing, whatever that looks like. It might be sending a card or making a phone call or reaching out to someone. So even though there's been some challenges, I like to try to focus on, some of this good stuff that's happened. So how do you reach a care coordinator? A senior safety coordinator? We're all located on the Department of Seniors website. You can go to that, or you call your local detachment and ask if there's someone nearby. Like, we're all connected to the community, and we have resources. It's kind of like a one-stop shop sort of thing. So I hope that you will reach out to the senior safety coordinators in your area, because they're a great group of people. Anyway, that's it. I'm going to ask you if you have questions. I think Kara's going to join us.
That's great. Honestly, Dawn, there's so much that I've learned from your sharing of information today. And I think you nailed it on the head when you said one-stop shopping. You guys literally do everything in the community in regard to seniors. And the other thing that I wanted to thank you for, Dawn, is also sharing your personal experience. I think it's one thing, when people are listening to anybody presenting about the work that they do and how passionate, obviously, you are about the work that you do in your community, but when there's that sort of the personal connection, it just brings it back home that much more, and it's appreciated. So we thank you for sharing that with us. And it's kind of, you said at the very beginning of your presentation, when you said everybody is so different, each situation is going to be very individual. And sometimes those resources that may be in the urban centers in the cities may not look the same as what they would rurally, say in Digby, Yarmouth, Clare area, speaking specifically from the area that you cover with senior safety. So that's going to look very different. I've got a question here that's popped up in the chat. I'm going to go through a few other questions here as well. So I've got one question that has come in, Dawn. It's, they've said, my partner has dementia and they're wondering when would be the right opportunity to call a continuing care coordinator.
Oh, that's a good question. I know from when I was doing the support group in my area, a lot of people have trouble calling that 800 number just because they feel that they're letting their loved one down, right? So that's a tough situation. I have a tickle.
You have a tickle.
Yeah, so I don't think you can ever call too soon. I think it's important that you make that phone call and start the process, because a lot of people think you can just call your local nursing home and get in, right?
Yeah,
but that's not the case.
Yeah, and there is a bit of a process as well. So, especially for those family members, it's been tough during COVID, feeling isolated. So the supports that they may have had in the past, it may be a bit more difficult if it's a day program that they've been accessing for a while. So probably the best case scenario would be to call and explain the situation. And then when they call, they would get somebody on intake, they could explain the situation and then sort of go from there as far as what the need is. But certainly they could get an explanation of the services. And, if they're really trying to understand how to navigate that process, they can call us too at the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia, the info line, which is up there. We walk many families through that whole process of what is continuing care, what does it look like, what are the services that they provide, so we can provide them with that information too.
One of the other situations that I think we should mention is the capacity assessments, you know, like sometimes it's important to have that assessment done, and to have all your state stuff done ahead of time, because once you have that assessment, things change rapidly, don't they?
Yeah, 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 they can definitely. So, you know, future planning, as you had alluded to in some of the presentations that you do with senior safety, really, really key to look into the future and start the estate planning, start making sure that you have the power of attorney, designating somebody as your attorney who you trust, who you want to make decisions on your behalf when you may not be able to. So doing that early, and also looking at personal directives as well, which is really important, looking at your medical and your personal care. All of those decisions are big decisions to make. And so if I'm a person with dementia, if I have a diagnosis, I really want to make sure that my voice is heard and that I'm letting the people I trust know for that future planning, for the intention of that, definitely.
That's right. And I know you've had some education sessions with Jessica Lyle on your YouTube page too, which I think people should take a look at.
Yeah. Jessica Lyle has done a session complete, looking at powers of attorney, personal directives.
Yep.
And we've had Raylene McDonald as well, who's talked specifically about capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. I think it's something we don't talk enough about.
Yeah, because it's a hard conversation to have, to talk about our finances, to talk about what we would like to have happen in the future. And it's a tough decision.
Well,
it's
and the
a
other
tough
thing
decision
is,
for me. A
lot of times seniors only have like an adult child, but that doesn't mean that adult child is the right person to make those decisions.
Yeah. Sometimes it could be a friend, it could be a neighbor, an old friend, maybe, possibly, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. So I have another question here, Dawn. So this person is saying that their partner likes to go out for a walk, but lately they've noticed that their partner has been going for a longer period of time. So they're starting to worry about whether or not they're getting confused about how to get back home again. So what is something that you would suggest to ensure that they're safe when they go out and about in their community?
Well, again, every situation is different. Every family's different. What is the focus of that person's drive? Why are they wandering? How far are they going? I've had a few clients who would go like for long periods of time and eventually find themselves coming back, but the family's concerned, right?
Yeah.
So there's different types of technology that you can use. I know you guys are promoting the bracelets. We're working with Ground Search and Rescue a lot to try to make sure that we understand that specific person. You know, we don't want people to go missing for long periods of time. I have this great client who was taking care of her husband, and she was so in touch with technology. She had set up a camera in certain rooms of the home. Whenever he got up, her phone would buzz, or her little her watch. So there's different things to use, and there's tracking devices, and you know, people can contact the senior safety coordinators, and we can try to help in even referring to you guys or to help with that specific person. How can you better arrange the environment for that person? Sometimes it might be just putting a little bell on the door. I know when my mom left those couple of times, we didn't even know she was gone until someone brought her back, you know, and that's a scary situation. So we wanted a device to help us to find her, but not every family can afford that stuff either too. So
yeah,
it's a challenge. Yeah.
It is a challenge. And like you said, you know, there are different devices that you can use. There's GPS technology. I had a client who liked to go mountain biking on his property, and his partner actually went out and purchased a device that she attached to the spoke of his wheel and was able to track him from that perspective. So it doesn't have to be high tech necessarily, but even, you know, I'm just thinking too, if you are concerned, who else can, and who can go with your partner for that walk?
Right.
You know,
and let your neighbors know.
Yeah. And you had mentioned that earlier to say, you know, well, you don't specifically have to say that your family member has dementia. You can just say they have a medical condition which causes some confusion at times. So if you happen to see Bob, you know, walking down the road, just check in with him and see how he's doing. That can be another solution as well, you know, as far as ensuring the safety of a person who really loves to get out and walk, and we want to maintain they want to maintain their independence, but it's also safety, making sure that they're able to find their way back home again.
I remember recently at my detachment, they got called to go look for a fella that was wandering, and I knew him. So we're all going around and I'm describing him. This is what he looks like. This is where he lives. This is what he likes to do. Again, I would love to have that information that we can store it for policing. But anyway, we're all driving around town looking for him. And here he was downstairs in the bed, in the basement, having a nap the whole time.
Just having a nap. And that's what happens sometimes, right? Yeah. And so Medical Alert Safely Home, you had mentioned it earlier, that is the bracelet. So Medical Alert Safely Home, so it's a database and it has the person's medical condition, emergency contact information, also places where they would possibly walk to so that they can go there. But even more importantly, they also have a recent photo as well of the person so that you can pull that up in the database and they can see that information. So there definitely are some different devices out there. And I like the idea that you had said too, if somebody's getting up in the middle of the night, and so there's those sensors that you can place in the door frame so that it goes off if mom walks through the door frame, then you can hear that sort of beep, or you get a notification on your watch, which is great. All of those little things are really helpful. Here's another one. I'm worried about my neighbor. He lives alone and he seems to be more confused lately. Do you do wellness checks?
We do.
On seniors?
Yeah, and the beauty of that situation is she could call us, or he could call us, the neighbor, and say, listen, I just don't know what's going on. And when we go to the house, we can knock on the door and we don't need to say, your neighbor called and asked us to come by. We just, like I said, I'm here just to check on you, let you know that I'm here, and kind of assess the situation from there.
Perfect. Actually, that answers the next question. Basically, it was, if I am concerned, if I call and I report my concerns for my neighbor, will they find out who called? And so they won't. So that's completely confidential. Okay, excellent. Good to hear that.
It is, yeah, completely confidential. I visited a guy yesterday. He's falling down a lot, and his neighbors are calling. And he said to me, why are you people checking on me every day? And I said, well, I'm going to be honest with you. You've got a lot of people out there who love you and they're worried about you. And, it didn't make it about him falling down. It made it about people are worried. People like you. They want you to be safe. And it kind of changed the narrative for him. And
definitely. What a great way to change that narrative, is so that he knows that he's supported. He knows that there are people in the community that really care for him. And that's why they're watching. So that was beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. That was wonderful. So I'm just thinking, what kind of, so this is a question. What kind of information do I need to share with you when I call? So if I'm calling to say that there is a neighbor that I'm worried about, what should I tell you about the situation when maybe I don't know a lot about that person?
Well, you can even say, I don't know a lot. I just kind of worried. I want to know, I don't need to know all the personal information, but I do want to know that that person is safe and secure. So all we really need is a name and an address or a phone number. And the beauty of our situation is, because we're connected with policing, we either know the area, and that's something that's good about the senior safety programs. All of us are from the communities, so we are familiar with people and people are familiar with us. So a lot of people will say, oh, you're Idela's granddaughter. Yes, I am. So we can run them in the system.
Yeah.
And if it's not safe, we take a member with us.
Okay, good. And then there's another person has said, are there any pamphlets that you send out so that we can contact you? So I guess just for that referral sense, can you walk through that process again, Dawn, for folks that are listening today?
So we all have our own pamphlets, and we all have our own contact information. I would go to the Department of Seniors Facebook webpage and look up the contact information, and then just all you need to do is make a phone call or send an email.
Okay, so make a phone call, email, and then the Department of Seniors website as well.
So I can't say every county has a senior safety coordinator. I think there's a couple that don't. And some of the senior safety coordinators have really large areas, but the Department of Seniors website has the most up-to-date information.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Department of Seniors. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And then I just have another person that has shared that they're worried about behavioral issues. And so sometimes they have sitters that will come and sit with the person for the day. And they say that sometimes it can be challenging to keep them focused or to redirect
It's a
them.
tough one, because if you were relying on home care in my area, you're going to get a different person every day. For respite care, you're going to get a maybe different person. And that's a tough one, especially when you're dealing with dementia. In my family, that didn't work for us. My mother was absolutely adamantly not having strangers coming in to do her housework. My family is fortunate that we could afford to hire privately, and that's what we did. And we did it for the, times of the day that were most important, but not everyone can do that. And continuing care now has programs where they can, I forget what it's called, you might know, but you can hire your own private person, and then the government will reimburse you for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, there's a number of
that's,
different programs. So,
yeah.
so to call, definitely the 1-800-225-7225 number, that would be the number to continuing care
That's right.
to look for additional resources. And again, for this individual, it sounds like they might be working in a facility, a long-term care home, or a small options home or residential care facility. And if that's the case, you can also maybe look into training, so behavior training. So whether it's you first training, gentle, persuasive touch, those sorts of things. So there are different types of training specifically for healthcare professionals or frontline workers to understand behavior, to come up with tips and strategies to work with your clients. So I would suggest for you to give us a call on the info line. So
it also depends on their diagnosis, because there's different types of dementia. It depends on different types of interventions for behaviors.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's individualized.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, right? When we provide care to people with dementia, we're all different. We all have different interests, different likes, different occupations, different ways that we like to stay engaged. And actually, for the last question that came in on the chat as well, I would suggest you check out some of our other ALS education sessions, because there were a few of them that were looking specifically at meaningful engagement during COVID, meaningful engagement in the community, meaningful engagement when you're living in long-term care homes as well. So a number of different resources there, and all of those videos are actually archived on our website. So wow, thanks again, Dawn. We really appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge and the work in the community. It's just amazing.
Thanks for being my voice there, Kara.
Oh, hey, you know what? I've had it happen to me before too. So it's kind of like that tickle, and it just doesn't want to go away.
I know.
So thanks again. We